Welcome to Real Estate Unleashed. It's episode, what are we at now?
Five.
Oh my gosh. I gotta tell you, I'm excited about this one.
I am super excited about this one too.
I'm gonna spoil it right now.
Spoilers.
It's just gonna be nothing but bad news. No, that's not true. Before I get
hate to tell
further.
We got some bad news coming for you.
Bad news coming at you. We're here. We're live, and we're ready to really dish it out. But first, I'm Regan Hildebrand. I'm your co-host here. I'm a licensed real estate agent in North Carolina. You can find me on all social media at Regan.
And I am the other co-host. My name is Bridget Quinn. You can find me on social media at bquinn realtor. And as we said, I am very excited for today, not only because it's episode 5, but it also correlates to my favorite Star Wars.
Can't leave it out.
Can't leave it out. So
Reppin'.
If you don't know, The Empire Strikes Back is the best movie.
Yeah, and we say yeah. So it's all about the dark side.
The dark side did nothing wrong.
Dark side did nothing wrong. Empire did nothing wrong, but
Nope.
sometimes things go wrong.
There's plenty of times throughout real estate where things have went wrong. I mean, I haven't been fortunate enough to have nothing go wrong. Have you?
I had one deal that almost seemed too good to be true, and I think I was a dream. I don't think it was reality. I think I don't know. We'll save the good stuff for future episodes. No, we're just going to spill the tea.
Spill the tea. Hopefully not literally this time.
Not literally. Yeah, not literally.
I think someone had that happen.
Let's talk about
recently.
things that go wrong. I mean, so we're real estate agents, and we live out of our cars a lot, to say the least. And
live on coffee, energy drinks, maybe some
caffeine.
alcohol.
Yeah, not when driving and living out of our car. But yeah, as so often is the case, I recently, after one of our podcast recordings here, was traveling home and went through the drive-through and. I guess they don't make the cups like they used to, and literally spilled the tea all over my entire front seat.
Yeah, I got that message. I literally spilled the tea.
Literally. But yeah, so things go wrong in real estate. Sometimes in your car, sometimes in
that's why we'd like to go ahead and tell you the title for today is The Unexpected Strikes Back.
And it does. It strikes you back in the backside sometimes.
Sometimes it hits you out of nowhere. Sometimes you have that feeling that something is not going to go right.
It's the force.
The force.
It speaks
I
to
am one
us.
with the force. The force is one with me.
Flows through you, all living beings. Sometimes the walking dead of real estate.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the episode, and we'll probably have to have more that we sprinkle with this, where we just get to tell the tales of things that
dead men tell no tales.
Sometimes they need to, that keep us awake at night, or wake us up in a cold sweat.
There's always something that you're laying in bed and you think of and going, shoot.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just us as agents either. I mean, so many times I feel bad for clients because it's so stressful, and it doesn't have to be every time, but the unexpected is what we're talking about. And there's just certain things you can't see coming, and you can't predict them.
You can't. You try to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
But I found out that that's not always the case.
Right. In a deal, you have a playbook, which as an agent, what you're supposed to guide somebody through and the steps of the process. And we went through a lot of that, last week about, the home buying process, and it's for sellers too. You go through all these steps of what you want to happen in the order you want it to happen in. And then someone can throw a wrench into the plans.
And it can come in any stage of that, right? It can come from lending, it could come from inspections, appraisals, day of closing, anything can happen.
And I wouldn't just say somebody. I mean, the absolute biggest wrench was thrown in by what do you call it? Act of nature, act of God in the form of COVID 2 years ago.
That was definitely unexpected.
Yeah. So try showing houses without showing houses.
Magic.
Yeah. So that's the one that sticks out to me as the most completely unavoidable, unexpected, unforeseen, whatever you call it.
Well, everything came to an absolute screeching halt,
Yeah.
you know, unless, as we talked about at the last podcast, unless you were physically already under contract in the beginning, there literally was nothing else that we could do.
Mm-hmm.
And you were put on break and pause until such time that they deemed it, you have to follow these protocols, you have to do this in order to go forward.
Yeah, and everyone had so many questions. It is unforeseen, but also unexplored country, and we'll pull a Star Trek reference on you. Sorry.
It's okay.
Deal with it. But you had all that unexplored, unexpected stuff that came out and hit everybody all at once in the entire industry. Agents, buyers, lenders, sellers, everyone suddenly had to deal with a completely new paradigm of this is the reality we're in.
Yep.
And, I know I had clients that are like, well, we want to go see the house. Well, we're in a lockdown. I'm sorry. It's still on the market. Yeah. Well, what are our options? I don't know. I wish I could tell you.
That was the key phrase is, I don't know.
Yeah. And then you can ask everyone else, and they're going to tell you the same thing because we're all in this together at that moment.
Well, that's a High School Musical. We're all in this together.
I'll leave that up to you. That's not my expertise.
Song and dance. Yeah.
No song and dance in this podcast. Well, unless you want to. You go ahead.
I don't know,
We'll have a
doing this
karaoke
earlier.
episode at a later time.
Oh, I think we're delirious today. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the unexpected can completely throw you for a loop.
Right. And you don't know what's going to happen at any time, whether it be COVID or pandemic stuff related. But beyond just that, like, there's all these moving pieces in a transaction. You get your clients that you're helping navigate this process, and you know that they have a certain set of expectations. You're trying to meet those, whether it be what they're looking for in the house, whether it be, budget-wise, lending. And I always throw the hard brakes at lending because that's where most of the surprises come up.
But some of that is, it's a surprise when it happens, but at the same token, you can try to prepare for that.
Yeah.
Things happen. So to combat that situation, that's where I know you do, and but I like to have those hard conversations to say, here's how it is. Let's start here. Don't do this. Don't do that. Now that you're under contract, don't go out and buy that brand new car.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know that we talked about earlier today. Don't have that $700 or $800 car payment when you don't have to. Don't go out and open a $5 Kohl's card, or just to save the $5 on the Kohl's cash.
Yeah. And I now use that excuse anytime I'm in a retail place and they ask me if I want to sign up for their card. I just immediately say, I'm sorry, I'm about to buy a house. I can't open up any new lines of credit. Apparently, I've been about to buy a house now for about 4 years. It stops them dead in their tracks. So, free tip.
Yeah.
If you want to get them to get off your back, just say, I can't open up any new lines of credit because I'm about to buy a house.
So.
But yeah, those pieces we guide them through, but the elephant in the room usually is like on the other side sometimes of that deal with the lending.
When it's not your clients technically that you have to worry about.
Yeah, it's some third party that's involved that you don't have control. No, maybe no one does, but biggest one that I ran into most recently was a client that was using, we'll call them a large nationwide lender.
Okay.
Names will be withheld to protect the guilty. They're not one of the largest, but bigger than like your your mom and pop local.
Not your neighbor lender.
No. And this was not a lender that I'd actually worked with before in the past myself either. It was new to me. I'd heard of them, but they tend to be not so much in our region, but operate elsewhere. Anyway, and they were based somewhere out of the Midwest. The client was very adamant of using these folks, and obviously that's client's preference, and we'll
Sure.
run with it. And I'm going to do everything that we do just to
Yep.
make sure there's open communication. We get the pre-approval from the lender. We're under contract shortly thereafter on their dream property. And it really was their dream property. Like, this was the kids had grown up, and this was going to
This
be
was
their
a
forever
10
home.
out of 10.
10 out of 10. Like, it checked every box. And long story short, we get towards the end, and there's something that's come up on the inspection that is a condition of the appraisal. If you're not aware, an appraisal that goes through that process of evaluating the house for its value is what the lender then uses to say, this is, we'll lend on this
We
house.
can lend you this amount because it appraised for this, and if
and
it didn't
thumbs up.
appraise for that amount, then they
Thumbs
obviously can't give you that money because in their eyes it's not worth it.
Correct. And they can attach conditions, and the conditions can be anything from, there's chipping paint on the house. It needs to be fixed before it matches this value, broken handrails or missing handrails. And some of those conditions can be more strict, or, well, I should say more safety oriented, depending on the type of loan you're using.
I find that most of the time those are safety conditions.
Yeah. So every type of loan product is different, but a lot of them have conditions for safety, sanity, and security for the property. And again, taking a very long story and putting it down into the terms, we had a few conditions on this appraisal, and one of them was a septic system that was not where it needed to be. In the 1950s and 60s, apparently you could put a septic system right up against a house. You can't do that anymore. It needs to
No,
set
you
further
cannot.
away. And so this was a condition of the closing the loan, that everything had to be rectified. And we were moving towards getting all that done, but absolutely could not get in touch with anybody at the lender to tell us what
Yay
the
or
next
nay
step was.
or
Yeah,
what?
and to get everything closed up. Come to find out, the loan officer that had originated the loan had quit. Just quit the company, gone on something else.
Deuces,
And
I'm out.
and the person that had the file now, because as is with most companies, it's going to move from one person's
person
desk
to
to
the
another.
other.
Finally it took literally weeks to get a return phone call or email or anything from this new loan officer who had the file, just for him to say, I'm not getting paid, therefore I don't really have this as a priority. If you have somebody that tells you that,
Well, there's lots of red flags that were waving during that process. To me, this is why we prefer, again, it's client's choice of who they work with, but this is one reason why I like to use the local lenders and people that, literally are in the town or down the street. I can get them on the phone. I can say, yo, what do we do here? Or how can I help? Because
when the unexpected comes up.
when the unexpected comes up, they can take you through that process because they're the person, or it's them and their team specifically that have done this
Yep.
a bunch of times before. I know who's going to handle it and who's going to offer the solutions for that.
Yeah, and the other benefit of that local piece is chances are they built a reputation in their community, and they're just going to stand by that reputation and have some skin in the game to continue that
Right.
reputation, versus someone who's in a call center in Sheboygan. I don't know. Shout out to the folks
Sorry,
watching in
Sheboygan.
If if they're in that call center, they don't have skin in the game.
Right. Well, you're just that robot. You're just that person that you pass the paper, you pass the buck, you do it. Now it's your turn.
Yeah.
You do it, you pass it. You don't know who took care of it.
No, and tracking down the person that's responsible is a nightmare in and of itself. So, yeah, things go off the rails. What about yourself, Bridget? Like, what's the one thing that stands out as like the biggest monkey wrench that was thrown?
Well, so my lender story.
It's always a lender story.
Well, there were a lot of shady people involved in one deal, and this was from a lender that was out of state. The other agent, because I was a listing agent in this, and the buyer's agent, she was local, and this was a referral from another agent in another state.
Love the referrals.
Yep, love the referrals. Work them. She was working it, and she was a great agent to work with. And very long story short, come to find out, this real estate agent, who's supposed to be ethical, decided to log in or some shenanigans like that into this lender's portal.
Jesus.
And changed the pre-approval, the documents, the stuff like that. So
straight to jail.
Yeah, there was to my knowledge, there was a lot of reprimanding, and I'm not sure if this person is a real estate agent anymore.
God, I hope
and
not.
If they are, I pray that they don't take care of you. So again, that one caught me off guard, needless to say. And that's not something that you can say to your clients, hey, be prepared for fraud.
Yeah.
To take, that wasn't the other agent's clients. It wasn't their fault that this agent was doing this behind the scenes. But it's stories like that when they do get out, give the rest of us who pride ourselves on being professional and not doing those things.
Yeah.
The bad name. So
we have in North Carolina, we have the North Carolina Real Estate Commission, and the North Carolina Real Estate Commission is set up to protect consumers.
They don't care about protecting real estate agents, realtors. They are there to protect you, the consumer, the client, from bad things happening.
Right. We don't inter network with them for our own issues. Like that goes through our association, the National Association of Realtors, if we have a grievance between agents.
Right.
But when a client or any consumer in North Carolina has an issue with real estate, they go to the commission.
Right.
And the commission logs that complaint. About to have a real Southern accent. Logs that complaint.
Real Southern. Log that complaint.
Lodges that complaint. And they take action on that.
You're from North Kakalaki. Win.
Born and raised. They take and lodge that complaint, and then they act on it, and they do their investigative piece. And the wheels of justice sometimes turn slowly, but the resolutions are always printed. Well, not always. The resolutions are printed in our monthly bulletin. For those that aren't aware, that's accessible on the NCREC website. Yep. We can put a link to that in the show notes.
You don't want to be on that list.
You don't want to be on that list. You don't want to receive
out of that whole bulletin of information, and here's what to expect. Here's upcoming. Every real estate agent that I know is straight to the disciplinary actions.
Straight to the bottom link to read.
Who got caught this month?
That is the tea. That's the real tea to spill. And, ending up... So the process also starts with what we call the manila envelope. If you get a manila envelope in the mail from NCREC, then you know that something's going on.
Yeah,
it's usually investigative.
Yeah.
I've received manila envelopes.
Oh, yeah?
Uh-huh. Luckily, to testify against something that I might have information on, not to respond to a complaint against myself.
Well, yeah.
But they do a very thorough investigation, and then the complaints are logged. The resolution, sometimes it says, an agent gave up their license and denied any wrongdoing, and that's the end of the story. So maybe with yours, who knows?
I don't know. You know what? I'm kind of scared to find out what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. As I said, that one completely blindsided me, and the other agent. We just did not expect that to happen. I mean, that's not anything that we would have done.
Yeah. When you hold yourself to a high standard, it catches you off guard when you run into...
Well, because you expect someone else to do that same high standard, and when they don't...
And that's what really destroys the confidence for the consumer too, because their expectation coming in is that we're all acting above board.
Sure.
We're all following the same guidelines, and we all go through the same licensing, teaching, examination, continuing education. Yeah. We all have the same resources. Some of us just either choose to ignore or Others choose to
I'm not looking. I'm not paying any attention.
see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
That's the truth.
Yeah. And building on that same thing about NC Rec, I actually had to advise a client of their rights to file a complaint with NC Rec. This was 4 years ago. This was a deal that fell apart. And the short version is that my clients found a house that my clients were from out of state.
Okay.
And we do get a lot of relocations to North Carolina. That's a story that's a whole nother episode of the podcast. Great place to move to. And we deal a lot with clients who have to do things via either video tours, or maybe fly in for a quick weekend, see as many properties as possible, and then leave.
Yep.
And that was the latter was the case here. My clients had flown in or drove in, from Buffalo, New York, and were here for just a few days. Over a weekend. We saw as many houses as we could. They found one they really liked.
Yep.
We submitted an offer. This was before all the wildness. This was, again, 2018. So, the process was started. They were under contract before they left on Sunday. Very happy. They went ahead and chose a home inspector, and the inspections occurred middle-ish of the next week. And that was when I learned just how unexpected something can happen. So
what happened?
This was a brick one-story home built in the 60s or 70s, I think. And it was one owner for, I believe, most of that time.
Okay.
So, they were downsizing or whatnot. Don't know the whole story back on the selling side of it. But the inspector calls me. And anytime an inspector calls you from the site, that's not usually a good thing. And he says, hey, I know...
Unless they're asking, where is it? Or, hey...
Well, that's exactly what he was asking is, where is the electrical panel and where's the key to the crawl space? And he's on the phone with me. He says, I figured out the electrical panel situation. This is a home with a carport, not an enclosed garage, but there was also a utility closet as part of the garage, detached from the rest of the house.
Okay.
So the door to that utility room required another key, and supposedly behind there was going to be the electrical panel. And so he says it's locked. That's really strange. Finally got that unlocked. He came back out for a reinspection. Same thing with the crawl space, because it was locked. The crawl space had a padlock on it, and he couldn't get into either one of those. So we had to get a reinspection. He had to come out at a different time, and they were unlocked. Well, in that utility room on the carport was the electrical panel, which was basically the hottest mess he'd ever seen. It had what's called stab lock, and if any electricians are listening, you probably got shivers hearing that. The stab lock breakers are recalled. They were recalled in the late 70s, early 80s, I believe, before my time. I was still just a young sapling. And they present a fire hazard.
Yeah.
In addition, there was all kinds of DIY wiring that was going on. There was a flue.
Did it look like a switchboard?
It was. He sent me a picture of it. It looked just like a switchboard. There was a flue to...
For you youngins, if you don't know what a switchboard is, look it up.
That's how we made phone calls back in the day.
Not quite like the old school.
Like on Mayberry. And in that same room was the water heater, not the hot water heater, just the water heater.
You mean it's not a hot water heater?
Didn't have any seductive clothing on it, but what it did have was another mess of very dangerous situation with the water heater. Then in the crawl space, after he gets underneath there, it was just a mess of sister joist and cracked joists and termite damage and
held up by one brick all again.
Oh yeah, the piers on the bricks were all cockeye, just terrible. And so this was enough to immediately put the brakes on the transaction.
Sure.
I had the inspector, explain to my clients the severity of what he found,
right,
and ballpark estimate of what it might cost
to fix it. Yeah.
We got some of that from contractors and had a good idea that we were talking 5 figures.
Oh, absolutely.
Easily. And they decided to terminate the transaction. Well, before they terminated, I called the listing agent and said, hey, all this was just detailed everything we found. And the listing agent says, yeah, they were aware of that. That's why they accepted your client's offer of under list price. Where was that disclosed?
Well, that was my next question was, if you are aware of that situation and what's going down and how, why would you not have that on the disclosure to say,
yeah,
I know of these issues?
Yeah, exactly. And so that was the next question back is, why weren't we given that on disclosures? In North Carolina, our property disclosure form that every seller is required to fill out gives you the option of yes, there is a defect, no, there's not a defect, or no representation,
right.
which is just don't know.
Right.
And these are 30 plus, 40 plus questions, depending on if there's an HOA or not, of detailing things of, do you know of any issues with the roof? Do you know of any issues with the crawl space?
The plumbing,
the
electrical, your pool, your whatever.
Yeah, all this stuff. And no was answered on all these questions.
No, willingly answered no on
no
everything.
defects. And then told by the listing agent that, yeah, we knew that. That's why I accepted your client's under list price offer. And so, yeah, hard brakes put on it. My clients did choose to file a complaint with NC-REC. I'm not sure what the actual outcome was. North Carolina Real Estate Commission sometimes withholds information if, again, a license is surrendered or some other behind-the-scenes things are done to take care of it. My client got their money back from the inspection, got their deposits back. We moved on to the next property. But yeah, that was the biggest unexpected surprise when somebody tells you, oh yeah, we knew about the defects. We just hid them from you.
Again, it's sort of like
under lock and key. Yeah.
To me, it's not so much that the unexpected happens. It's that people aren't really doing their job to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah. We can work together.
We can work together to find solutions, right? I mean, I've had situations to where, inspections have found things that obviously nobody really expects. You find termites, or you find, the crawl space way in the back where you can't really see because someone isn't going to crawl this much.
Not
but
me.
The inspector did. It was able to find, okay, there's issues that it does really need a lot of repairs. That I can deal with all day, even though it may be unexpected. We work together as a team to figure it out, get you across that finish line. So some of this stuff is unexpected, but you can sort of plant the seed in your clients, whether it's a seller or the buyer, to kind of, as I said before, you prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Right. And anything can happen. It doesn't matter necessarily the age of the home. Things can come up, and reasonable people can work through them.
Sure.
And we try to surround ourselves with reasonable people to the best of our abilities.
Well, there's only so much you can do.
There's just so many hands in it. We had so many issues the past couple years with appraisals coming in under value, meaning that the client may have offered $400, but the lender says via the appraisal is only worth $375.
Right. Well, some of that's because the opportunity, I guess, or the chance to win the contract with it so busy, you had to kind of throw this ridiculous number out there to even be considered a win or to get under contract. So, if the house was listed at $350 and your clients knew it probably wasn't worth $375, but to get the deal, they had to throw that $400 out there.
Yep. And have $25,000 in their pocket to make up the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's not to say that in North Carolina we don't have an appraisal contingency on our contract, so the home still has to be bought regardless of what that appraisal comes back as. Some states have a contingency that says, hey, we're going through this part of the process first,
right,
and then we remove the contingency once all's good and
conditions
clear.
Are met, right.
That's not the case in North Carolina. So if a buyer's looking at purchasing that house, they got to have not only the lender backing it, but also show proof of funds to cover that.
That's a conversation I have with my buyer clients. Once what you're talking about, what you're offering, and realistically, if in my heart of hearts I know that there's potential that it won't appraise for this amount, that's that conversation that we have to have. Are you sure that you have this cash, or here's what I think, or
yeah, we make informed decisions with the information given to us. Sometimes it's a win, sometimes it's a painful follow-up conversation.
Sure.
But it's a lot of not guesswork. You can't put guesswork in it. It has to be informed research. That's why, I know we share that in common. We pride ourselves of doing a lot of research before
You sort of spin the
jumping
wheels,
in.
it feels like some days, trying to find out as much as you can, or talking to this person, or if I don't know, I ask you, or hey.
Yeah. And it's just the whole part of staying informed, and it makes it easier. I try to go to all the inspections on properties if their scheduling works out to hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Absolutely.
Not calling my inspectors horses.
Well,
That's a good one though. Just off the top of my head,
I was just gonna say,
I did have an
like to be
inspector
there.
who was a little bit of a jackass to me. That's worth a tell. So we, it's a combination, I should say, of jackassery from a lot of different sides. I was actually helping another agent in our firm out while he was on vacation.
Okay.
And went to the inspection, went to show the house. It was clients that had purchased it sight unseen, but video tour, and they
Sure.
came into town, and now they're seeing the house
Need to see
firsthand
it again,
themselves. House was vacant, but and it had been under contract previously.
Okay.
And now it's back on the market, and they had secured the house in the second round of opportunity there, and they're under contract on it, seeing it again, first time eyes
in
on
person.
it.
And that's completely different than a video tour.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah, you see things. I mean, we do the best we can, video tours and the 3D models that you can have with the different stuff nowadays. But when you see it firsthand, you get more eyes on it. And this is a home with a basement. And as we're leaving, I notice on the door, the front door was a hanger tag from the previous home inspector. So the previous clients who were under contract, not these clients, had a home inspection, and there's the hanger, and it said, "Please do not remove the radon testing equipment until it's the 2-3 days that they do the testing is up." Oh, okay, so they had a radon inspection. Context clues, right? Call up the agent who has the deal after he gets back from vacation and says, "Hey, we did the walkthrough. They love the house. Looks like there was a previous home inspection done with a radon test. Just so you know, so you can ask the listing agent what the findings were." Yeah. And so he proceeds to ask them, and was told, "We can't release the findings to you because the home inspector has barred us from doing so." And apparently they tried to share something, and the home inspector got very irate that information is copyrighted to him. And if you look at the bottom of the agreement or whatever on page 1 or whatever, it says, "Do not release to any other third parties." So hiccup. And we're
let's
usually
not disclose any material facts here.
Well, we roundabout figured out a way that we can disclose stuff without seeing the actual printed findings.
Okay.
But it's sometimes hard when you're dealing with a party to the deal that doesn't want to be as cooperative. Unfortunately, no fault of the listing agent in this case. They were trying to do right. But someone else stepped in and said, "Time out. No, you can't share that. You can read it to them over the phone, but you can't send them a PDF of it." There's always. We try to be very agreeable, I think, because in the end, we don't want to add any more stress than is already a part of this process.
As we said before, it's the biggest deal that you're probably ever going to purchase. It's not to be taken lightly. So when you go through this, we want to try to make it as easy peasy as possible. If I can talk to you and kind of give you a possible worst case scenario, we prepare for it, and then it doesn't happen, that's an extra win in our book, right?
Right, yeah.
So, stuff happens, and sometimes it throws you for a loop.
Knocks you off your horse. We get back up, get back in the saddle, or else we wouldn't be here today. It's not for the faint of heart. All that being said, we're fortunate. We work with I've had so many people on the other end of deals, whether they be the loan officer, the other agent that you're co-brokering with, whether it be an inspector, that have gone above and beyond.
Absolutely, and we've had several. I know each of us have had loan officers that have saved deals because something came up. I mean, I can think of another one where a credit union it didn't tell me until the last second that all of a sudden, because I had clients that were buying an older home, it was considered historic, and then instead of the normal say 5% down, they require like 30% down. Your average buyer is not going to have 30% to put down. So it was like, okay, well,
not when you plan for 5.
Not when you plan for 5. I mean, if you plan for 5 and you hope to maybe throw down 10, okay, that's one thing. But so that's why we're grateful. At least I am too, to work with such great people that can sort of help save those deals. Or when it throws me for a loop, I can say, hey, help me help them, and take it from there.
Just having a set of resources in your back pocket of things that you can do to think outside the box, to get around an obstacle. Some obstacles you can't get around, and I'll be the first to tell a client we need to walk away.
Yep.
It's painful. It is. It's like that deal that I described earlier. It's very painful because you've got to start all over.
Well, you do. I mean, that's what happened with that lender deal, the fraud. I mean, we had to, finally say enough is enough, and we walked away, and that went off market, and then it went relisted, and things worked out better at the end, for the clients. That's who it's all about at the end of the day, and.
Yeah, if there's a whole piece of fate, and if it's meant to be, and whether or not you subscribe to that. In the end, though, we try to get the best result we can for a client, and we'll have to spend some time on the next episode talking about those happy endings which
happened. As I say, I think more times than not it ends up working out.
It would be depressing if all our deals ended up with horror stories that we could recount, but most of them end up with extremely happy people, and sometimes you get those ones that they just they really bring an extra bit of joy to you, and we'll talk about that. I'd rather
talk about the good than the bad, but with the bad or the unexpected, whatever you want to say, at least I like to try to take something away from that. Is there anything I could have done to prevent this, or what can I take away as learning from this situation? If there is anything that I can, which most of the time I think it is.
Yeah, I think most of the time it is. Sometimes it's just something to laugh about over a drink. Other times it's something that you really have to remember. We can't let that happen again.
Right.
And we'll try as not just
do the best we can
individuals, but we share those stories with others.
We do,
as learning opportunities. That's gosh, I know we could both recount other stories and things of that nature. If you're listening and you're an agent that has one of those horror stories,
we'd
find
love
us
to
on
share
social
some more
media.
Horror stories.
If you got a really good one, we'll bring you in on like a remote little pop in or Zoom kind of thing to tell your story. But if you're out there though and you're on the client side of it, and you need help,
don't be scared with our stories.
Don't be scared. We're not trying to scare anybody away. Reach out to us though if you have concerns just about that whole process and how to navigate those waters when they get choppy. A little choppy. We'll guide you through there. We'll guide you home and get you into the right place and hook you up with the right people to make that happen. Yeah, that's good recounting of the sometimes uglier side, unexpected side of it.
Yes.
We'll come back next week and we'll talk about some things regarding stuff that wasn't around for a couple years.
Yeah.
Some little pieces that now are back in play.
Maybe the return of some things.
The return of some things. The return of some pieces that benefit our buyers. Yeah, we've had a lot of good input from not just buyers, but also people like lenders have given us some extra tricks in our pocket, and we'll share those with you next week. So make sure you tune in then. Otherwise, I am Regan Hildebrand with the Home Team Realty Group, at Regan on all social media.
And I am Bridget Quinn at B. Quinn Realtor, also with the Home Team Realty Group.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time. Bye.